followed by the 23rd Psalm. Rabbi Spitzer was part of Vivian's life and part of this family's life for now more than 45 years.
In this setting, the setting when we come to remember the lives of those we love to have passed from this world into whatever is stored up for the righteous, we find certain readings, certain prayers, certain psalms become emblematic. We hear them over and over and over again. And the challenge is not to anticipate those words, but rather to listen to them more clearly, more closely each and every time. One of the poems that I find so meaningful because it speaks about what we are here to do today is called Birth is a Beginning. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity, and youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until, looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. We gather here then today to consider that journey that Vivian made in life and how she brought each of us along on that journey with her so that we could give her strength in times of trial, be strengthened in her love, and to move towards life everlasting. We begin with faith, the 23rd Psalm. Adonai ro'i lo echsar binot deshe yar bitzeni, al mei menuchot yanachaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech b'geitzal mavet lo irara, ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha, hema yanachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai, dishan tavashemen roshi, kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamim. If you are familiar with the words, I invite you to join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
We will hear words of remembrance and tribute from a few members of Vivian's family. First, from Bobby Weinstein.
For those who don't know me, I am Herbie's first cousin, and my mother, Yvette, and Herbie's father, Jerome, were brother and sister. Let me start out by talking about who Vivian wasn't. There's a story about a fellow who passed away, and he was not very well respected or liked in his community. People really didn't like him. The rabbis gave their eulogy, and then they stood up and said, is there anyone in the congregation that can come up and say one thing nice about Irving? And everybody just kind of said, isn't there anyone that can come up and say anything nice about Irving? And finally, an old guy shuffled up and he looked out at everybody. He says, well, his brother was worse. That's not Vivian. Everybody here would have something kind or a memory of Vivian. She was kind, she was loving, she was non-judgmental, she was bright, she was committed to her faith, she was a wonderful wife, an outstanding mother, an adoring grandmother, a faithful relative, and a loyal friend. Vivian would be 96 in September. Her father and mother were from Chicago, obviously from Poland. Her father came in through Cuba, her mother through Ellis Island. She was the picture of her mother, Adeline. And she grew up in Chicago during the Depression. And I think that's probably where she learned to store coins and money in jars for the rest of her life. Obviously, her father had told her about the bank failures during the Depression. But she learned about hard work, commitment to family, the importance of being frugal, and how to really live a good life. Her father and mother are kind of the American dream. Her father had a liquor store in old Chicago, and the family lived above it. She lived there with her brother Bill. I was in that store as a little boy, and I was also up in the balcony where they lived. Vivian's father and mother saved virtually all of their money and ended up literally building apartments in California. They lived the American dream. Vivian's brother Bill was the very embodiment of that family, an enormously successful businessman. And he carried on through his children. They're here today. They're all successful. And I can tell you that one of the things that Vivian would be very proud of is the cousins are more like brothers and sisters. They went to dude ranches together. They golfed together. When Jason was ice skating, they all went to Sochi in Russia for the Olympics. A very, very close-knit family. One that I think Vivian and her brother Bill would be very proud of. Well, Vivian graduated from Roosevelt College, and that's where the story starts. And I would say, I'd call it opposites attract. Herbie was an athlete. He played football at the University of Illinois. But he was not a huge ladies' man. This was not Travis Kelce. He was rather shy. And there I was in 1950 at the Sheraton Hotel in Chicago, Illinois. And Herbie's younger brother, Jordy, was getting married to Betty. And who was a bridesmaid? Dearest Vivian. That's the first time I laid eyes on her. She had on a beautiful, soft red chiffon dress. And my mother was there, my dad was there, my brother was there, and everyone was there. And let me just digress and tell you this. Herbie's mother died in her 40s. It's where Vivian's daughter, Nancy, got her flaming red hair. Jerome was 18 years older than my mother. And my mother pushed Jordy and Herbie around in strollers and essentially became a second mother to Herbie. So, we're at the wedding, and my father literally made the shidduch, the match. He brought Herbie up in his white tuxedo, which he always wore, and introduced him to Vivian, and the match was made. Opposites attract. Well, what are we going to do with this athlete and this graduate? Where's he going to work? Well, my father, Uncle Eddie, took care of that, and he got him a job in St. Paul, Minnesota, where I was born and raised. Where? At Herman J. Lavin Factory that made parkas and coats. And Herbie went onto the cutting room floor. Can you just picture it? He hated every minute of it. But they were married, and they moved into a studio apartment in St. Paul, Minnesota on Marshall Avenue. And Vivian loved it. She became a wonderful homemaker. It was one room with a bathroom. At the time, I was living in a duplex with all of my relatives, at times 16 of us. But Vivian and Herbie became our family. Vivian and Herbie became the daughter and son of my mom and dad. There's no question about it. They would take Vivian and Herbie grocery shopping. They would go to the synagogue together. On Friday nights, there would be a Shabbos dinner at our home, and Vivian would be learning how to play mahjong with my father and Herbie with my mother, and Herbie and my dad would be watching the Gillette Friday night fights. Vivian made many friends in Minnesota. Many people remember. And I have this fond memory in 1952 of sitting on Vivian's lap during the Republican National Convention on our porch on Dayton Avenue. And there was Eisenhower giving his speech. Well, as you can imagine, Herbie did not like the cutting room floor. And he answered an ad to become the athletic director in Canton, Ohio. He became the director, and I think all of you know, he built the Jewish Community Center into a powerhouse. He kind of was a de facto mayor of the city. And Vivian was right there with him. Whatever it was, community activities, the Hall of Fame. Vivian fell in love with Canton. She made so many friends, had so many relatives. And then came the children. First, Jeffrey, the devoted son, the gifted CPA, inherited that business knowledge from his mother. I remember when Vivian first had cancer many years ago, and I would call the hospital and say to Herbie, how is Vivian doing? He'd say, here, talk to Jeffrey. And Jeffrey had developed almost an encyclopedia knowledge of Vivian's condition. Vivian couldn't have had a better son. He took care of her hearing aids. He made all the arrangements at the nursing home and hospice. He took her to the doctor's appointments. He did everything for her. He was a wonderful father. He's a loving husband, a true mensch. And Vivian welcomed Barbara into the family as a daughter. What else did Jeffrey inherit from his mother? A love of coupons. And Jeffrey now has become a human points and awards program person. And then there's Philip. What did Philip inherit from his mother? Perseverance. And if you start out on a task, you're going to finish it. A very devoted son, a good son. He came to visit his mom. Vivian adored him. Let me tell you something about Philip and perseverance. He never missed one day of work in his entire career. That's not hyperbole. That's a fact. He got that perseverance from his mother. And Philip's late wife, Melanie, became Vivian's daughter. And there was Nancy. What did Nancy inherit from her mother? Kindness and love. An incredible loving daughter. So close to her brothers. An incomparable aunt. She would travel from Chicago to visit her mother at least once a month and stayed with her. And what else did she inherit? She was a very good businesswoman. Worked at a national beer company, now an executive with Mars. You know, in the last few moments of Vivian's life, she opened her eyes, and her 3 children were there facing her. She pointed her finger at each one of them, as if to say that she'd completed her job as a good role model and a mother. She closed her eyes and passed away. And of course, there were the grandchildren. Vivian worshiped and adored Eric and Amy, and came to adore and respect Sean. And you know, Vivian, the non-judgmental one, whatever path her children or grandchildren chose to walk was okay with Vivian. Amy was there with her grandmother the last couple days of her life, all day long. And nothing made Vivian more proud than to see the name Eric Rosengard listed in the credits of The Wicked. Well, my mom and dad remained very dominant in the lives of Herbie and Vivian. We visited each other almost all the time. True story, I remember in 1955, we drove the 1952 Dodge down to Canton, Ohio. We were leaving a gas station in Illinois, and my dad turned to talk to my mother. She wasn't there. He had left her in the gas station. We went to Canton, and I remember opening the cabinets, and there were the jars full of money. And of course, Vivian gave the master bedroom to my mom and dad. And I remember spending time as a young boy at the artificial lake that the Jewish Community Center had in Canton, Ohio. Now, again, opposites attract. Vivian was an astute, bright businesswoman. Herbie, not so much. When it came to business, Herbie held the lantern and Vivian chopped the wood. That's the way it was. Vivian worried about mortgage rates, Herbie worried about the White Sox. Vivian became a very respected and successful realtor. Like her father, she invested in real estate. Vivian owned a strip shopping center. Jeffrey will tell the story about when he would go with her to collect the rents. And if you were a nickel short, you were a nickel short. But everything worked out for the best. And I will tell you, Vivian was very practical, which I have to inject another story of a practical woman. There was a woman in the Jewish community, her husband had died. And she called up the newspaper and she said, you know, my husband was a very prominent man. And he was the president of the synagogue. He was a very big businessman. He was on every committee imaginable. He was a philanthropist. And the fellow said, well, you know, that's going to cost a couple $1,000. She said, I can't afford that. He said, well, today we're running a special. What we can do is 5 words for $20. She said, I'll take it. And she said, what would you like to say? She said, here's what I'd like to say. Jake died, Cadillac for sale. Now, Vivian was practical, but in a different sort of way. And actually, everything turned out for the best with Herbie and Vivian. Opposites attract. One of them liked chopped liver, the other liked hot dogs. So let me conclude on a serious note. My late mother loved St. John knits. Along with her mahjong case, she gave many of her clothes to Vivian. I'm honored beyond belief to tell you that Vivian will be buried in one of my mother's St. John knits. Vivian was a woman of great character and unimpeachable integrity. Simply put, she was a great example of how to live an outstanding life. This is a woman who never missed your birthday or anniversary with a card or a call. A woman who prayed for everyone's health and happiness. A woman who loved all of us with all of her heart. So today we celebrate the life of a wonderful woman. We may lose her, but we'll remember really the kindest woman to walk on the planet. Vivian showed us how to walk through the world. And she shared with us a strong and purposeful stride. Her wisdom was never loud. It was a calm in the storm. She had the gentle compass that always pointed true. And with a heart full of patience and judgment so clear. She taught us all what was noble and good to do. But most of all, Vivian gave all of us a master class in love. May you rest in peace, dear Vivian.
Thank you, Bobby. We will now hear from Vivian's grandchildren, Amy and Eric.
Thank you to everyone for being here today to celebrate the life of our grandma, Vivian Rosengard. Grandma loved above all else seeing her family and friends who became family all together, just as we are today. I've been so lucky for 38 years to have her in my life. From all the love she gave, life lessons she taught me, and experience shared, Amy and I were so lucky to call her our grandma. I always knew how special she was. When I was on the other side of the world running into someone from Canton, Ohio, they of course knew Vivian and Herb Rosengard. Letters and calls, not email or FaceTime, were the main way we kept in touch with Grandma. She would love to send us an article or coupons we might be interested in, and they'd promptly arrive in the mail with a note on a piece of gifted hotel stationery. Grandma always kept up on all of our favorite sports teams and how they were doing. I'll never forget, I was at a tailgate at Penn State. My grandma was so excited to call me just to let me know Michigan lost. Besides all of the incredible places we visited with her and Grandpa, the memories that stand out most are the small moments. Playing bingo with Grandma in the North Sea. She, of course, won. She continued that winning streak for decades to come. Visiting Grandma and Grandpa in Palm Desert every winter was always so special. Going on walks, picking the freshest grapefruits, borrowing newspapers from strangers, are memories I'll never forget. Grandma loved those snow-capped mountains, and to this day, whenever I visit the desert with Sean, she's always my first thought.
The majority of my memories are from visits to Canton and trips to the desert, but my most cherished ones are from these last few years. I watched Grandma move from her home to sanctuary with incredible grace, accepting the change, tidying up loose ends, all while getting settled into a new normal. She always said how well she was cared for, how she enjoyed the food. I enjoyed meals with her there too. It's definitely a step up from her home cooking. And if timing didn't coincide with the meal, she made sure I wouldn't leave without at least one piece of chocolate, right up until the very end. Last month, during a visit on a warm day, she spotted a tattoo I somehow managed to keep covered for over a year. She hated my tattoos, and usually that was the end of the discussion. But on this day, she listened while I explained why I continue to get them. She still didn't agree with my reasoning, but I think she understood. For the first time, we agreed to disagree. She told me getting old wasn't easy, but she showed me what it could look like. Grandma was a model for aging, accepting life's changes, and maintaining autonomy at every stage of life. A successful businesswoman, a devoted wife, a caring mother, and loving grandmother. I'll always remember those once-in-a-lifetime experiences Grandma gave us, like the vacations to Alaska and Europe. But what will stick with me most are the quieter moments. Grandma reminded me that in the end, happiness doesn't have to be complicated. All you really need are family, friends, a good book, and maybe a sweet treat.
The lessons we learned have helped us grow. The memories we shared will never be forgotten, and her love will be with us forever.
To echo what she would say to all of us before any of our travels,
To Grandma on this last journey,
Gegesen and Gegesen. We love you so much.
Next, we will hear from Vivian's daughter, Nancy, accompanied by Marie.
My friend Marie, she'll probably do most of the talking. Whoopsie. Marie and Jim Seiler and their girls. They adopted Mom, and perhaps she adopted them first. Either way, their sweet name of Mama Viv stuck, and it says a lot about their relationships with Mom. These past days, I've heard repeatedly, she was literally the nicest woman in the world. And you heard Bobby say that too. I heard about how she helped so many people buy their first home and their second, so many people, while becoming a friend, going beyond just being their realtor. She did this with integrity in a business that could lack it at times. I love this about her. I stand her as her daughter who knows deeply how lucky I am to have her as my mom, while also getting to watch her with my brothers is something I cherish and really what I want to share. With Jeff, she loved every conversation, finance, her care, gifts to the family, anything. He carries our dad's humor, and their easy rapport lit her up. Hearing them together always made me smile, because I knew how much joy it brought her, and you'll hear him talk about it even more. With Phil, the word is kindness. Nothing make her happier, she would tell me, than returning to her apartment at the sanctuary and seeing him waiting. She called it her best surprise. As her 90-plus-year-old body, as she would call it, slowed down, Phil's quiet devotion on his visits meant everything to her. Time with Phil and his late wife, Melanie, where dinners at home or special outings were so dear to her, and it gave her the chance to fuss over them in the way she loved, whether Phil liked it or not. As for me, I cherished every moment, every day, every celebration. You can go on.
Every ordinary hour. I always had my list on visits because I didn't want to miss a thing. Helping her send cards, sitting together at dinner, watching the walkers and the bikers on the trail behind the sanctuary, making phone calls to family or friends to touch base. These were simple moments that became treasures. She loved my friends, always said I was so lucky to have such wonderful friends, which I agree 100%. She loved every visit and loved knowing Wendy would make sure that I came home after our girls' nights out without Mom ever needing to ask.
She knew that Wendy would hustle and make sure I came home. I can go. Barb, who gave her 2 grandchildren that she adored, as you can see, who cared for Jeff, made a home where Mom was always welcome and created holiday memories she cherished. Mom may not have said it enough, but if she were here, she would say some of her very best days were these celebrations and how special Barb made of them. Barb, for me, your steady guidance and the love you put into everything you do means the world to me. The way you've cared for your family and ours these past few days shows your heart. Thank you for always making me feel at home. I appreciate you more than words can say. And then there's Ellen and Steve, our family. Their friendship has meant more than words can express. So many years of holidays, life cycles, events. They were her Auburn Knolls neighbors, and they had endless delicious treats. Their home became my home away from home once Mom moved to Sanctuary. The generosity, the sports watching, tennis conversations, guidance, and baked yummies. Mom's joy of hearing me say, I have something from Ellen. That was pure happiness to her, and she would say, Ellen's goodies are the best. And for some of you, you know that's so very, very true, and we all enjoyed some of them yesterday. To all her friends and family who visited, sent cards, or showed up in big and small ways, your presence lifted her and it lifted us. She saved these cards, which tells me they meant so much to her. I think she saved every card or note she got at Sanctuary. We can tell you, we've seen them. And to the cousins, I love you all, and you make my life better every day, and Mom loved you too. Her smile across a room, her little wave, her request for just a few more pieces of Dove dark chocolate. These are treasures I will carry forever. That was a little marketing plug, I should I think our share on Dove chocolate might go down. Mom was our world and her love, steady, gentle, and forever, and she will stay with me always.
Now we'll hear from Jeff with Barb.
It'll probably be more Barb than Jeff. But as Eric said, really do appreciate everybody coming. It means a lot, especially everyone who kind of drove down or flew over. It's so appreciated. Mom lived an extraordinary life of more than 95 years. And over the past 30 years, she fought many health battles where the doctor said she didn't have much time left. However, she seemed to always bounce back. She took advantage of the bonus time and filled those years with kindness, generosity, hard work, and love. We appreciate that so many people have shared examples of how she impacted their lives the past few days. In fact, she would frequently tell me a story when she was in her 20s. She and her friends made a visit on a whim to go see a psychic, which her spending money on that was a surprise in itself also. The psychic confidently told her
she was going to live a very short life. Mom loved telling that story because she always got to end it with a smile and say, "I'm still here." Mom was a Depression-era child. As a result, she was very careful to never waste or spend unwisely. My dad always was probably just the opposite, and she tried to control. For example, we always had to turn off the lights when we left the room, not waste or throw away food too early, she kept it too long, and save any wrapping paper as we were opening gifts at Hanukkah or at birthdays. One of the best examples of her desire to not waste and help her children not spend money that they don't need to spend was that one year she gave me a bag with all the greeting cards for birthdays and Mother's Day and so on. Over the years, she kept from Barb, Amy, Eric, and myself over the years. She told me not to buy her any more cards and just give me one back every year. This was one of the best gifts she could ever give, if you think about it. Since I never needed to go to the store to buy a card, plus it was already filled in and signed by us. I actually think she loved the cards more the second time around. Mom never complained, no matter what life handed her at the time. If anyone asked her how she felt or is there anything bothering you, she would simply say, "No, I'm fine." As recent as this past Monday, I was talking with her on the phone and asked her how she was feeling after an especially tough weekend, and she replied, "I feel good." I told her she was fibbing. She then asked me how my leg was. I told her good, and she said I was fibbing. So then she goes on to say, "So I guess we're even." And then she says, "It's obvious we come from the same tree." She simply never wanted us to worry about her, even though she spent a lifetime worrying about all of us. She appreciated what she had and never focused on what she didn't. She didn't ask for much or for herself. If she had one wish, it was always the same, that her family would be happy, healthy, and doing well. Their happiness was her happiness. And nothing brought her greater joy than spending time with her children, grandchildren, and other family. At the beginning of every phone call with me or visit I had with her, she would always ask, sometimes twice or more, "How are the children and what are they doing?" I think she still felt they were still living with us. Her smile was the best. The moment one of her children or grandchildren, family or friends came to visit or called on the phone, she would just light up and have the biggest smile. My dad used to joke, "I think people like your mom more than me." After seeing the incredible number of cards and flowers and gifts she received when she was recovering from cancer. It wasn't hard to understand why everyone liked her. People were naturally drawn to her warmth, kindness, and genuine concern for others. She always went out of her way to make people feel welcome. She never judged someone by how they looked, where they came from, what their beliefs were, or who they were. It just didn't matter. Whenever one of her children or grandchildren brought someone home, she simply welcomed them, smiled, and did everything she could to make them comfortable and feel part of the family. That was just who she was. Most people knew Mom as a wonderful wife and mother and grandmother, but she was also an incredibly successful businesswoman. She built that success through hard work, meticulous attention to detail, honesty, and integrity. She had an uncanny sense of timing, whether it was buying a stock, guiding someone in purchasing their first home, selling a property, or making the difficult decision to move into independent living. Moving into independent living wasn't part of her original plan, but it turned out to be one of the best decisions she ever made.
Because it gave her more years of friendship, comfort, safety, and an incredible quality of life.
Personally, I wouldn't trade the last 7 years I shared with her for anything. After I retired, I had the privilege of spending so much more time with my mom than I ever thought I would. We talked on the phone daily, went to doctor's appointments together, managed Colonial Square, went out to lunch, or simply just spent time together talking about her grandchildren or other business matters. At first, I thought I was helping Mom. Looking back, I realized she was still teaching me. I came to appreciate even more how caring she was. how meticulous she was in everything she did, and just how funny she could be. I discovered a wonderful sense of humor that had always been there, but was frequently overshadowed by Dad's larger-than-life personality. Those ordinary days became some of the greatest joys of my life, and I will treasure them forever. After Dad passed away, her cousin Bobby made sure Mom never ran out of books to support her love of reading. Every time her bookshelf started to get low, a box of 10 to 20 books would show up at her doorstep from Bobby. Mom would smile and say, "I don't know why he keeps doing this, but I like it." Then she'd say something that always made me smile. "Those books are keeping me alive." And I really do believe they did. Bobby, I hope you know how much that meant. Not just to Mom, but to our family. Your thoughtfulness gave her so much happiness. I do hope Barnes & Noble will survive. Our family is deeply grateful to Dr. Julia Ferrantino, Mom's primary care physician for a number of years, whose compassion and care meant so much to Mom and to all of us over the years. We also want to thank the staff at Sanctuary Grant who cared for my mom while making her feel at home the last 5 years. Lastly, we appreciate the kindness and care that the nurses and aides at Absolute and Corso Care hospices provided. Specifically, nurses Megan and Tina, who was there at the end, made sure that my mom was comfortable and treated with respect her last few days. I would be remiss to not express my deepest gratitude to my sister Nancy for stepping in to help in sharing Mom's care.
Okay. Despite living in Chicago, her support was invaluable. Her monthly visits to Canton were a wonderful blessing for my mom. She made sure that Mom had the goodies and essentials that would make her happy, along with providing her nonstop company. She helped Mom in calling one of her friends and determining who to send a greeting card that month, address the card, and remind Mom to sign it. In addition, she was the best orostomy nurse in Canton, in that she frequently had to replace Mom's device or show one of the nurses the proper way to apply it so it doesn't leak. Coming in monthly never seemed like a chore for Nancy.
Nancy, I love you dearly, and I truly appreciate everything you did for our mom and me the past few years. I don't expect you to visit every month.
Even though that would be nice, we would like you to visit every month. But we hope we can plan many visits and trips in the future. As you all leave today, you'll notice bowls of chocolate near the doors. Dove chocolate. For those of you who paid Mom a visit, you know she had a bowl of chocolates on a table, which she would offer every visitor, as well as one for herself. Mom loved chocolate, and we thought there was no better way to celebrate her life than invite everyone to enjoy a piece in her memory. It feels exactly like something she would have wanted. Something simple that brought a smile to someone's face and hers.
In closing, Mom, you taught us that kindness is always right, that generosity doesn't need recognition, that hard work and honesty still matter, that family always comes first, and that a warm smile can change someone's day.
I will miss you more than words can ever express. Thank you for every sacrifice you made for us, every lesson you taught us, every hug, every phone call, every smile, and every day you gave us. You and Dad set such a high bar of what the right things are to do. We will carry your love, your example, and your memory with us always. Knowing that you and Dad are together again lessens the pain of the loss.
Mom, may you rest in peace, knowing that your life was a blessing to so many, and that your legacy will continue through everything, through everyone who had the privilege of knowing and loving you. I love you.
Over the years, I have garnered a reputation as giving a pretty good eulogy. In fact, there are those people who said that I should, sell them as a fundraiser. One of the things about eulogies that have become very important to me is when family members come to speak about their loved one, to talk about what they remember, talk about what they learned. And when children and relatives get up and speak well, I think it's a wonderful thing. Today, as family members and friends have gotten up to speak not well, but marvelously, I tremble. You captured not just the accomplishments, but the values of Vivian Rosengard. You have been able to bring together the idea of Herbie, who was outgoing, kinetic, with Vivian, who was soft and good and kind. Now, that's not to say that Herb wasn't soft, good, and kind, but he hit it pretty well. I can still hear him, I've mentioned this a number of times over the years, going down to Rotary at the hotel across that large ballroom that was opened up so that all the Rotarians could be at tables for the program, and Herbie would come in the back of the room and you'd hear, "How are ya?" So that does leave me wondering what I'm going to say. But I have something to say. First of all, I offer you all my condolences, and along with my condolences, those of my wife, because in reality, of all the people we met just prior to coming to Canton to live, Vivian was a very, very important one. She modeled something about this community. And you heard it in the words when Herb moved the family here, how they fell in love with the community, how they contributed to it, and how it made them part of the fabric of life. That was a lesson that Vivian taught us. That Canton is not a second-rate place. It's not, well, I almost was in Akron, which perhaps could have been Cleveland. But Canton was an important place because it was the place that we lived, that we created memories and values and participated in the Jewish community and the general community far beyond our normal abilities here. So I'd like to tell you just a brief story. When we first took the pulpit here to succeed Rabbi Gorin 45 years ago, Sherry and I came with our children, young kids at that time. We came to Canton to find a place to live. And the Jewish realtors in town made a joint decision that Vivian would be the one who represented us and helped us find a home. One of the houses that she showed us was ultimately purchased by Rabbi Mordecai Miller, who was the rabbi of the congregation here before it was the congregation here. And the other houses that she showed us were very, very nice. But she showed us one at 48th and Market, off of 48th and Market, that I immediately fell in love with. It was spacious, it was home, it was warm, and it was way out of our price range. It was Vivian's knowledge of real estate and finance and business that she was able to put together a deal that benefited the seller, benefited the temple, and enabled us to move into that house and sleep on sleeping bags until our furniture came. When we came to look at homes, and we saw the house that we were interested in, Vivian and Herb invited us over for dinner. It was a lovely time. And after dinner, she took our children and walked across the street to that pond that's over there, and they fed the ducks together. What a sweet thing. I tell this story because it was Vivian who helped us in the very beginning at a time of transition when we were coming. We were excited, we were scared, we were anxious, and she helped to make a home for us. When you look at the obituary that was published, which was really, I thought, so beautiful, it had so much information in it. All of her skills, all of her values, all of her connection and love for her husband and her family, her friends and her community, helped to make Canton home. It was a blessing that she gave to not only me, but to friends of mine who bought houses through her professional work, the organizations that she supported, both Jewish in general in Canton and internationally, the values that she lived. I suppose it allowed her to say, when Herbie said, "How are you?" she could say, as you've said, "Just fine." Her job in this world is done. She lived to 96 years old. 5, well, 1 to grow on. We can be sad, but it's not a tragedy. When you get up in years, past 80, closer to 90, not me, God forbid, and you begin to think about what life is about, you realize that life is a journey that leads from blessing to travail, to learning, to growth, and hopefully to life everlasting. You realize that that's what Vivian did. The only criticism I would have of your mother is I don't think giving chocolate to a dog is a good idea. Unless, of course, you have a very special dog. It is an honor then to be in this place with this community of people who knew her and loved her, and to say to you all, she has created for us home. Whether we live out of town and return, or whether we will not leave until they carry us out of the house that she sold us. May she rest in peace.
It's common for people when they greet each other to say, "How are you?" Like Herbie might yell across a ballroom. Sometimes when people say, "How are you?" I'll say, "Living the dream." But I don't know what that means until I met Vivian Rosengard, because I just met Vivian 6 years ago, and to me, she was living the dream. To have a loving family who comes to visit you but doesn't live with you, to have children who have launched, to have someone else making your meals, and delivering them to you or just having to go downstairs. Instead of having to come to synagogue, to have the synagogue come to you on Fridays. To have a cousin who sends you books on his dime, and then to have the time and the patience to be able to sit all day and read wearing slippers and a bathrobe. To me, that is living the dream. We should all be so blessed to make it to 95 with our wits and faculties about us, and to live lives that are worthy of the kinds of blessings about which we've heard for Vivian Rosengard today. If you are able, I invite you now to rise for the memorial El Maleh Rachamim prayer. El Maleh Rachamim Shochein Bameromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina Im Kedoshim Utehorim Kazohar Haraki Amazhirim Et Nihishmat Aviva Bat Hershel Vehodel Shalcha Le'olama Baal Harachamim Yastireha Beseter Kenafav Le'olamim V'yitzror HaChayim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'tanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava V'nomahar Amen. God of abundant mercy, God Most High, may the soul of Aviva Bat Hershel V'Huddle, Vivian Rosengard, find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace together with the holy and pure whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold her close to you forever so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you and may she rest in peace as together we say, Amen. In a moment, we will conclude this part of our ritual and then process to the interment at North Lawn Cemetery, followed immediately by a meal of consolation back at this building. For those who choose not to come to the cemetery, feel free to remain in the building and we will come back for lunch afterward. I now invite the pallbearers to come forward: Amy, Eric, Sean, Randy, Charles, Gail, Steve, and Marla. And John Arnold will give us some instructions.
So I'm going to pull this out and then hold this in first. We'll just step along the sides. Everybody take hold of the handle. Divide up evenly. 3 of these. We got 4 on this side. I have plenty of You were the last one.
For those who are going to the cemetery, please remain at your places until the pallbearers have removed the casket out to the car, and then we'll go immediately to our cars. For those remaining here, please wait until everyone has headed out, and we'll continue with the liturgy at the cemetery. Thank you for paying tribute to Vivian this morning. Thank you.
Sarasota, and of course Sissy, Margaret.
Do you want me to take the photos with me or do you want
Also in Sarasota. They're only about 3 or 4 miles away. Yes, they're in the same, on the same street. Put it that way. Different addresses.
I'll take it.
Yeah. And then, her daughter, Betsy's up in New York, Huntington, New York on Long Island. And married with 2 boys.
Right.
And then, of course, Pop, I'm sorry, Sam, Charlotte.
Yeah.
And his wife.
This little way.
Cooper City, on the East Coast.
Now, where's Cooper City on the
Like, you know what,
You wanna go park
take
there?
Alligator.
I'm gonna leave the
Cooper
pillows out
City
there.
is on,
What?
I think it's
Sorry,
just,
what? I'm gonna leave these pillows out there on the table right there.
I think it's below Fort Lauderdale.
You know what?
Oh, yeah, I thought
Oh, you're talking in Florida.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's where Sam is. They're in Cooper City, yeah. They're right on the coast there. I think you can find Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, okay, so it's not, because I'm in, South Palm Beach on the
Yes.
ocean. I'm in the same place that we, since 78.
You need me to come down and visit you?
Sure.
Are you handy? Can you fix stuff?
I can fix stuff.
Well, good.
You can have a second career down there.
I even have a guest bedroom,
Oh,
so.
There you go.
You come with your toolbox.
Yeah, that's.
Sam, Sam and Jamie.
Yeah.
This is like, little mine.
Oh, that's
I can use that, this temple down there.
really nice.
Yeah, but that,
That was just right, that's right, that, Tampa, so that's from the Florida. But they're on the east coast and the west, they're on the west coast. Well, but,
that's about a 4-hour drive on Alligator.
Yeah.
Alligator.
Yes.
It's easy to get, it's hard, it's like
Yeah.
a schlep.
You gotta hustle.
Yeah.
it is.
Is there much, I mean, it used to be like a big nothing, that road. But now it's probably like a 4-lane.
Oh, yes, yes, 4-lane divided, yes.
Oh, wow, it's much easier.
Yes.
What do you want? To go to Florida? What do you want?
Mary and I always went
Right.
around in February, on her birthday.
Right.
I did go down to Florida this year. I had a friend that lived there. He just passed, a guy I worked with, Sandstock. And so we stayed with Molly for a little bit. Yeah, he was passed away from pancreatic cancer, but worked at the police department for our entire careers.
Oh, my gosh.
His dad was Mayor Strasser at one time.
Oh, okay.
North Canton. But I was down, I stayed with Molly and saw Mark.
Wait, is the street named after him?
Yes, the park is named after his dad.
Oh, wow. I never heard that.
Yeah, he was buried this week, a week or so ago. So it's just, 2 weeks.
Wow, had it for a while, because I guess it doesn't show up. Boom. Those 2 lanes. Yeah.
But anyways, that's the last time I got down to Florida. Once my group passed away, I didn't go down for a while.
Sure.
Life goes on and
Yeah, right.
the people come into your life.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate, I thank God, that brought Stephanie. Because